Well, we gotta talk crap, right? I remember the first time that we recorded, and I knew that, like, I knew the date and time that we were going to record, and I remember when I wasn't, I remember my first times, like, oh well, I need to do this, oh I got a backwards plan, that way I'm ready, oh I should probably turn on my computer that I may have not turned on, since the last time we recorded, which has been a few weeks, and it being a Windows computer, it's probably got some updates to it, because it's Windows. So it's a shame not to have Luke here this week. But hey, man, his NCO days are his NCO days are that was a long time ago, man. That was a long time ago when he learned about PCCs and PCIs.
Dude, that's not even NCO days. That's specialist Luke days.
Luke, it's the Augie. I'm telling you, man, it's the Augie. Yeah, you're getting ready to roll, and you're doing combo checks, and you're like, what's wrong with your radio? Be like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to bring my radio down here right now. I got to go back to my room and get it. I love it. Hey, so your 3D printer got fixed, obviously. For those not watching on YouTube, Roger's showing off his latest creations from his 3D printer here.
It's George Washington, man.
Well, I know who that is.
What I'm telling the listeners out there,
Oh, okay.
they can't see it. It's obviously George Washington. I don't know how it shows up on the camera anyway, but yeah, my printer blew up, and fortunately I was able to order some more parts and pieces, and they must like little people must put this stuff together because, dude, like my fat hands and fingers, and dude, yeah, they don't fit in there. I mean, those things are they're pretty tight, but I was pretty stoked to get that up. So trying to do some practice printing to get it calibrated and everything. But speaking of which, so Christmas, how'd it go? You get everything?
Dude, I got everything I wanted except for my GI Joe aircraft carrier. You know, another year. I dig. I mean, now, I say I don't want to. I definitely don't want to. Come across as ungrateful from last Christmas and my, my GI Joe aircraft carrier flag. From Ginger Inferno and you guys. But no, man, it was a good Christmas. When you get older, and I just, Christmas for me, it's for the kids. I mean, it's nice to get a few things,
Right.
but you know the. I was talking to the wife about it. It's like it's one of those things. It's like during the year, like if there's something I want and I budgeted for it, I just go get. I just buy it at this point in my life. It's not. Christmas is so it's not like I'm waiting for Christmas for things that I really, really want. I got some surprises, like you did probably. And, it was really nice, but the good thing was that everybody was, everybody was here, it was another Christmas, not deployed, um, and
That's always a big plus, man. That's a
yeah,
huge plus.
yeah. So I got some really nice stuff. And I got some stuff people put a lot of thought into it, which is always good, and that really means more than, just a Christmas of somebody just, kind of handing you something and be like, I didn't know what you wanted. So I just kind of got you this, type stuff. But no, it was good. Father-in-law came down, spent Christmas Eve with us and Christmas Day. And, so yeah, man, it was good. What about you?
It was pretty quiet. Same thing, quiet, low key. Got a couple surprises here and there, but we've got this debate going on between my wife and I. So, at what age should Christmas lists for your kids go away?
Oh,
Because
that's
my
a
whole
good question.
theory is like, I've got three kids. Two of them are in their 20s, over 21, and then my boy who's at home, who's 20, will be 21 this year. So I can kind of see still giving him the Christmas list because he still stays at home, even though he's a grown man. He's an adult, and I was jumping out of airplanes at his age, but whatever. My two oldest, though, it's like they don't even live with us anymore. Like they're gone, right? They live somewhere else in an apartment doing their own thing. It's like, so do we still do Christmas lists? Because my wife is like, well, I need their Christmas list. I'm like, I think we're beyond the Christmas list phase. I think we're into the two, three gifts, like you said, something thoughtful and meaningful, and two, three gifts under the tree. And it's not like they're 5 or 6 anymore, where you just try to load it up with stuff for them to open up. So I don't know what's the cutoff age for Christmas lists.
Man, I don't know. I really honestly I haven't thought about it. I mean, one because we still have teenagers. In the we still got our three in the house. I don't know. It's for I'll tell you, for the kids, it's always, like my parents and, my wife's dad, she'll ask, okay, what are the, then, my sister and, sister, they always ask us, they're like, all right, hey, what do the kids want? And so, we're still in the Christmas list thing. But as far as like age goes, I don't know. I think I would say once they move out, like the Christmas list is like kind of done because at that point, you know what they need.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's okay. You just moved out. You're on your own. You're in an apartment. I can guess there's 17 things off the top of my head that I can name off right now that you're gonna need.
Right.
Right, just moving out on your own. So that's easy. And even as an adult, once you get older, you know, like that's yeah. I think once you move out, I'd say generally speaking, let's say your kids stayed at home through college. So let's say 22. I'd say 21, 22. Like Christmas lists are done at that point because you're out on your own. Like even after I left and joined the army, like my parents didn't ask me for a list. It was what do you need? And I was like,
Right.
okay, well this is what I need. You know, so
Maybe
yeah,
it goes to who hosts the Christmas. So, like, kids obviously come home, and so we ask them for the Christmas list. Well, maybe when I go visit my daughter for Christmas, maybe next time or the time after, maybe I give them my Christmas list. Like, here's what Dad wants.
yeah. So what's so I guess for next Christmas though, you asking for a bumper to an Audi or what?
Yeah, it's it was traumatic yesterday for the family here because as kids, and we were all that age, but at this point, at this point in our lives, I have, I've done enough to look dumb on my own, and now I'm all about like I don't care. There is no embarrassment factor in them, there anymore. I'm more worried about taking care of my stuff because I don't want to spend money. So my daughter was driving my wife's Audi, and it's an older Audi, so but we've kept it in good shape. It's like under 70,000 miles. It's garage kept. She doesn't drive it a whole lot, but so daughter came home and she was out running errands or whatever, and they sit relatively low to the ground. And she pulled up, ran over one of the little concrete, curbs or whatever in the parking lot, and put it in reverse. Starts coming back, hears it, and as opposed to like stopping, right? Hey, oh, let me stop. Let me call Dad. Like Dad will come out there with a couple boards or something, and we'll back. No, we'll just put it in reverse and go faster. So, yeah. And it was enough of the bumper that it was beyond the scratch. You get that little black scratch guard or whatever underneath it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
actually went up into the bumper, and so the front end is. Let's put it this way: we are not as aerodynamic with the Audi anymore. We're a little bit lighter, but we're probably not as aerodynamic. Yeah,
The windscreen in the front's a little bit bigger.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
A little bit more of a draft coming through the windows. So you
dude.
just sit there, you look, and you're just like, what do it reminds me when she was first starting to drive. And again, we've all been there and done it, but she was driving my truck and she's pulling into the garage, and our garage is like a 2-car garage, like a legit 2-car garage. Like it's not 2.5 or 3 where you've got some room. Like you have very little wiggle room. So it's pretty tight
Yeah.
fit anyway. And she was pulling my truck in the garage, and she came around, hit the front corner. And as opposed to stopping, well, no, I'm just going to go faster. So
I love it.
she went faster. And of course, the whole front quarter panel or whatever it was just, raked up against the side of the garage. Where it's like, didn't something in your head tell you to like stop?
I love it. And she's in medical school too, right?
Yeah,
No.
so I think I've taken her off. I was going to use her as my primary care manager. She might be like number 2 or 3 on my list now.
She,
Just saying.
the stock is falling. The stock is falling. It's yeah, man. That's tough. So when I was a kid, I think I was like 14. I might have been 14. Maybe just turned 15. My dad, we had to get some stuff out of our yard. I forget what it was. Dad had got done doing something, and it might have been just some boards and some construction material. Dad had got done building something because he was always doing stuff like that at our house, and I asked him, I was like, "Well, can he had just bought this new truck and it was brand new. It was probably well, it wasn't new, but it was a couple of years old." And and so I was like, "Well, Dad, I was at that point where I was like, I want to drive. I want to learn how to drive." And he had let me drive it a couple times when we were in the woods and stuff like that. And he was like, "Okay, yeah, you can take it and just pull it out there, next to it, and then I'll let me know and I'll come out and we'll get this stuff loaded up." And I was like, "All right." Well, we had a lot of pine trees in our yard, and I had to like make a really kind of sharp cut to back up to the stuff, and there was a pine tree kind of there, and I cut it
Kind of there.
it was kind of there, and I cut it really really sharp, and I caught just behind the cab on the driver's side, just behind the cab, right, or just behind where the cab and the bed come together. And I kind of did the same thing that your daughter did on the curb. I was like, "Man, I'm stuck. Like the truck's not moving." And
Just go
I look in the
faster.
mirror. I look in the mirror, and I'm like, "Well, it's stuck on this tree." So I put it in drive, and I just use the gas to leverage some brute force and ignorance, and to get off the tree. And it basically, dude, it scraped the entire left hand side of this truck bed from the cab all the way down to the bumper. And I went inside and I was like, "Hey, Dad, I please don't be mad." And he just like looked at me, and he got that look on like, "What did you do?" And I was like, "It's your truck." And he just looked at me. He says, "Come with me." And we walked out there, and he walked up to it. And he like looked at it, and he didn't even look at me. He was like, "Go inside right now." He was like, "Just go inside." And I was like, "Well, it's." He was like, "Stop talking and go inside." And I've come to find out later, I think he was telling me to go inside, not because I was in trouble. I think he was telling me to go inside so he didn't physically like put his hands on me and like break bones. Because he was super upset. Man, he was upset.
I'm sure. Well, what's going through his mind is like, all right, Joshua, out of this 8-foot scratch on the truck, like maybe foot number 1, 2, or 3, you decided, hey, maybe I need to stop and go get dad. Right.
Yeah, exactly. No, no, yeah, he was, I'm sure there was a lot of thoughts going through his head, and some I can't say because we don't want to get the label on YouTube on this one. We'll try and avoid that as long as we can until you drop the first F bomb anyway. And but it was funny, afterwards I was like, "Well, just the insurance will pay for it." And my dad goes, "Yeah, I'll call the insurance company and tell them my 14-year-old son was driving my truck and put it into a pine tree. Yeah, they'll they'll love that." And of course, you're a kid, you don't know any better. You don't know how any of that stuff works, and you're like, "Well, I mean, why would they have a problem with that? I mean, why can't you just tell them that?" And he's just like, "Just go away. Just go." It's yeah, it was not good, man. I can only imagine. I can only imagine though seeing your wife's Audi like that. Ooh, had I been, once I got older, obviously, better. Something like that happens. It's like, okay, stop, because you know, brute force and ignorance is it can get you through some things, but when you're dealing with cars and especially nice cars, it's generally not a preferred tactic.
Yeah, because at that point, dude, I'm like, I would have literally drove out there with my jack and jacked this damn thing up and put it on boards, and But I mean, that's what. Yeah, again, as you get older, the embarrassment factor is gone. Like I don't care, and it's funny because my son bought some. He bought some rims for Christmas for his car, and they're nice, man. They're pretty. Like I could never put pretty rims on my vehicle because I know I'm going to scuff them up. That's just how I am. I know doing U-turns or whatever. I'm like, hey, man, just take your time and learn the meaning of the 17-point U-turn, because that's what's going to end up happening, unless you're going to scuff those expensive. Because once they get scuffed, they're done. Like, I mean, I guess you can repair them, but for most of the stuff that's like powder coated or whatever, I mean, it's done.
Yeah, yeah, especially when it comes to rims. Um, and the embarrassment factor for you. I mean, dude, everybody would, even watching you in that parking lot, they look at you and then they see your daughter standing there and they know exactly what happened. They'd be like,
Yeah,
ah, she drove it up onto the
got
curb,
it. Yeah,
huh?
yeah. Well, it makes it even better because and then I get it. Accidents happen, and I was just kind of chewing her ass last night because especially the type of person I am. I have the immediate explosion,
Yeah,
so I explode for about 5 or 6 minutes. Cook off, and then I'm kind of done and over it or whatever. But
yeah,
her car while she's at school, it's still registered in our name or registered in my name. So it's like on top of that, it's like I'm getting speeding tickets in the mail. I'm getting, toll booth tickets in the mail. I'm like, you didn't stop at the toll booth? I'm like, well, I didn't see anybody there. I'm like, well, you can't just drive through it. It's like, come on, man.
They still have the little change thing that you can toss your change in if nobody's there.
Yeah, well, I think some of the states, I think like Florida now, they're going like where you have to have the Sun Pass. And if you don't have the Sun Pass or whatever, you just drive through. Because I think a lot of those are unmanned out there. So you just drive through and then they send you the bill in the mail. And the problem is, like, if you have the Sun Pass, okay, the toll is like $1. Well, if you don't have a Sun Pass because you don't live in Florida, they charge you the dollar, and then it's like a $35 processing fee.
Processing fee, yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is this, dude? This
Yeah.
toll booth cost me like $40, $36.
Yeah. So, yeah, and speeding tickets and stuff, man, bro, you're a good man, Charlie Brown, because it'd be like, hey, you got a speeding ticket in the mail. Why don't you go ahead and Venmo me that money?
Well, I can't because the problem with it, it's like being married because right now she's in school and she saved, I mean, she's done a good job. She saved up a lot of money to go to school. She knew she was going to be out there for 2.5 years and, she's got, she can't work obviously. And that's what she's living off of. But, we have to help her out and pick up, whatever's left over and she's got an apartment and all that other stuff or whatever. So it's like, well, whatever money I take from her now, I'm going to have to give it back to her at the end anyway, to get her through school. So it's like, well, we might
Uh,
as well just go ahead and eat the cost because, it's every $100 you take now. Well, I'm just going to end up giving it back to her to make sure she can finish her school. And, because that's our goal. We want to make sure she finishes debt free. And like I said, she's done more than her fair share and effort to make sure that happens. But we're just there to try to help subsidize it and help make life a little bit easier for her. But yeah, it's one more year,
yeah,
brother. One more year.
one more year. Yeah. No, I get it. And I'll sit here and, talk yang as Luke puts it. But I'll probably wind up and be in the same boat.
You don't have a choice, dude. You don't have a choice. When they go to college, it's like, it's like no, it's no different between your wife getting a ticket. It's like, hey, babe, you can give me the money, you can write me the check so I can pay this. No, it comes out of the same pot. Either way, this is what it
Yeah,
goes.
yeah. No, that's true. That's very true. Um, yeah. So she's got a year left.
Yeah, she actually goes back next week, and then I think she's got like maybe 2 or 3 more months of school, and then it's all clinicals, man, from there on out.
Nice.
So she's on the, now she's got to execute, obviously. At first it's all
Sure.
academic and in class or whatever, but, I think it's kind of nice to actually be out there in the field now doing her stuff. So she'll travel around the country for, I think 6 months or something like that, 6 months to a year. She'll travel
Oh,
around the
nice.
country and just do rotations in, different hospitals and clinics and stuff like that. Figure out what she wants to do, go back, graduate, take the test, and become an American tax-paying citizen, paying more than her fair share.
Nice. Paying more than a fair share. Hey, man, dude, somebody's got to fund Ukraine. Zelensky can't do this by himself. And
Good Lord, dude.
he's going to invest it now. It looks like he's going to invest it in, the World Economic Forum. Looks like he's throwing his hat into the ring and our money into the pot with Klaus Schwab and all of them. I saw that and it was just like, and we just gave that dude $45 billion. Like this is it's absolutely crazy. And now they're comparing him to Winston Churchill. Do you see all that?
Yeah, dude, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
They're comparing him to Winston Churchill, and I tweeted. I'm waiting for my personal Twitter account to get banned. Like like the C3 Twitter account. Because I retweeted, somebody posted a picture of him and then a picture of Winston Churchill next to each other, and I was like, and so of course I had to comment because even though I have the right to remain silent, I don't have the ability. I was like, yeah, I said one of these people actually fought Nazis, and the other man is named Zelensky. you know, and then I hashtagged it with the Azov battalion. It's like this guy, after all the talk, and we said this before, after all the talk about, here at home in the left, we're like, oh, punch a Nazi in the face. It's like this guy has literal Nazis in his army, in his military, and people are demanding that you give them money and demanding you put a Ukraine flag in your Twitter profile. It's absolutely crazy.
Dude, and it all started when he came to visit the White House. He was wearing his tracksuit or whatever, and they were like, Well, what's wrong with that? Winston Churchill wore, they showed that his garb or whatever that he was wearing at the time. And, I don't know the circumstances, all that visit or whatever, but, it just goes back to, and I think you brought this up before. I don't blame Zelensky for what he's doing.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
He's trying to do what he's got to do to fund his country, take as much money as you can, defend his country and other, other objectives that he has down the road. What bothers me is, we sit here and we talk about, well, hey, if Elon Musk would just give up, $13 billion, we could end world hunger. If he would just give up $5 billion, we could end, homelessness in America and this and that. What this new omnibus bill, and we'll kind of get into that because I want to get some of your thoughts on that. I think it's another round of what, $45 billion to Ukraine.
Yep,
So we got to be over what, $100 billion now, right?
easy, easy.
Unbelievable.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know the exact. I don't know the exact amount, but it's definitely over a. It's definitely over $1 billion. But we didn't have $5 billion to build a wall. That was too. That was too expensive.
And that's what kills me. It's like, hey, I don't mind. I mean, I get it. Okay. I understand, foreign aid. I understand force projection and things like that. And you have strategies and interests around the world and you have to fund those things. And I have no issues with any of that stuff. The problem is I want to see some accountability, right? Hey, where's the money? Because here's the deal. They want to go after you for your $601 that you Venmoed somebody, right? Because they did some work around your house or whatever. But nobody has a clue where the $100 billion that we sent to Ukraine. We don't know where it's going. We don't know how it's being spent. And the bigger issue is we're not taking care of things here at home. You take care of things here at home first, and then with the money that you have left over, you take that. And granted, we don't have any left over, right? Because we run a deficit every year. But you take the money that you have left over, and that's when you say, okay, what are our interests around the world? We need to prioritize these. This is how we're going to split it up. This is, how much money we're going to give to whomever. We're not doing that, and we're not even taking care of the issues at home. I mean, we sit here and we still have this, border crisis out here that half the left now was like, there's no border crisis. Like Biden literally flew out to Phoenix and was a 40-minute, you know, plane ride from the border, but couldn't do it because he was out doing a fundraiser. Dude, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely insane. So you talk about the omnibus bill that just passed. So what's your initial thoughts on this $1.7 trillion omnibus bill that was passed? Obviously bipartisan support, both the Democrats and the Republicans.
It's garbage. It's it's absolute garbage. When you really start breaking down the bill and you see where that money is appropriated for, it is absolute garbage. One, we don't have $1.7 trillion to be spending. Because like you said, we run a deficit every year. Even after 2021, the United States government took in a record amount of taxes. It was like it was over 4 trillion. It was I think 4.4. It was 4.2, 4.4 trillion dollars, the most it's ever taken in. And then turn around and still ran over a $2 trillion deficit. And so anybody who's passed, again, we've said this before, anybody who's passed first grade math knows that if you spend more than you take in, you're going to be in the red, and you will forever be in the red as long as you continue to do that. So we didn't have the money to spend. The fact that a sizable chunk went to Ukraine is absolutely insane. Yeah, that we continue to to fund them. And when you turn around and you look at some of the other things that that bill paid for, is 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 nuts. It went to there's a bunch of money that went to the alphabet people. Um, and by the alphabet people, I'm not talking about agencies. I'm talking about alphabet people as Dave Chappelle, describes the alphabet people. It went to build it's going to build a park, a Michelle Obama, dedicated park in Washington D.C. Because that's what that's important to the country right now, and that's really what we need to we need to spend money on. And that would go for a park for anybody. I don't care who it is. It's just not what we need to do right now. Um, and and then everybody's pet projects. I saw Elizabeth Warren come out and talk about how she got a bunch of money for her state and everything, and that's fine. At the end of the day, okay, yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to take care of their constituents and the people who put them there. But that bill is not good for the country. And there was also, a lot of money in there that was dedicated to, red flag laws for firearms and more money. And it is where really people you didn't hear a whole lot about this, but it's in there. Is there's a lot of money for the CDC for gun research, um, gun crimes and gun research. And I'm like, what does that have to do with the Center for Disease Control? Like, what do firearms have to do with the Center for Disease Control? Like, it to me, that's just one of those. We saw the power that was delegated to the CDC, and the power that the government allowed the CDC to wield, during COVID, and it was scary, because they did it by proxy, basically, and to give them a whole bunch of money to start kind of wielding that same power against the Second Amendment is not positive. So I think the bill was bad business all around. Um, and the Republicans that voted, for that bill, obviously it was the same, it was the same names that we generally hear, all the time. We talk about them too. It was the Collins and the Murkowskis and the Romneys, and so none of the names were surprising on there, except for Tom Cotton. I was surprised to hear or to see Tom Cotton's name, beside the Republicans that voted for that bill.
Well,
Um,
it's because of the TikTok ban. He got his TikTok legislation in there, and that's why he voted for it.
it's so dumb. Is that so? That's why
Yeah,
he got to say, "Oh, Jesus, come." That's another thing with these bills, man. They have to be like each individual, and there should be an omnibus should not be allowed anymore.
agreed.
they they should do away with those. Um, they should not be allowed. If you want to pass legislation, it is a standalone bill. You want to pass and ban TikTok from all government devices? Guess what? That's its own bill. You want to fund the whatever bridge in rural Massachusetts? Fine. That's its own bill. That's a standalone bill. Um, you just you
And
can't.
that's the way it used to be. We used to have 12 or 14 or something like that appropriation committees, and they
Yep.
would sit there and like you said, they would have to go through and say, okay, this is the money we want for Department of Defense, and you would legislate that, and then you would go through and this is what we want for infrastructure, and this is what we want for whatever. What they found was both sides, Republicans and Democrats, it was too close to the line item veto that never passed, right? To where you could, the
Um,
president could go through and say, you know what, this all makes sense, but why are we doing this right here? Let's remove this. Let's remove that. Let's remove this. It was too close to the line item veto, and what you're realizing is that whether you're Democrat or Republican, they're all the same. It's all about getting what they want and lining their pockets. And McConnell, he got up there, and here's what pisses me off. McConnell declared it a victory for the Republicans because they got more money for the Defense Department than the Democrats did for their earmark projects. But they're all earmarks, right?
yeah.
Um, Going through what House Appropriations Chairwoman Rosa DeLauro from Connecticut. So she bragged that it fulfills 98% of the Democratic members' requests in the House, with 5.4 billion for the 3,213 Democratic projects. Going along the lines of what you were saying. So here's a just some of the stuff that's in there. And this is called pork, right? It's pork and barrel spending that kind of went away, sort of, kind of, for a little bit. It seems like for a couple of years, and then now it's just back full force, and it's back full force with Republicans and Democrats. You've got 1.2 million for LGBTQIA plus pride centers, another 1.2 million for support services for DACA recipients at San Diego Community College, 477,000 for the Equity Institute in Rhode Island, 1 million for Zora's House in Ohio, 3 million for the American LGBTQ plus museum in New York City, 3.6 million for the Michelle Obama Trail in Georgia, down in your neck of the woods. So I'm looking forward to you taking some selfies on that trail. $750,000 for LGBT and gender non-conforming housing in Albany, New York, 2 million for the Great Blacks and Wax Museum in Baltimore, $856K for the LGBT Center in New York, $750K for the Trans Latin at Coalition, $2 million for MLK Labor in Washington, $1 million for the Equity Incubator at the universities at Shady Grove in Maryland, and another 791,000 equitable energy resilience and EV infrastructure in Sonoma, California. Those are tax-paying dollars. Those are our tax-paying dollars, and that's my problem. It goes back to states managing themselves. Hey, look, if you live in Maryland and you're a taxpayer in Maryland, and you guys and gals want to fund a trail to whomever, hey, that's on you, man. That's on you and what you want locally in your community and what you are willing to fund and pay for. I don't know why I have to fund a running trail in Georgia. I don't think that was the intent. But it goes back to what you're saying with the whole omnibus bill. It's like those shouldn't even be allowed. It should go back to your individual appropriation committees. Hey, this is what we're going to spend, because what they don't realize is that, and maybe they do, they just don't care. It's like, these are our dollars, my dollars in Arizona and your dollars in North Carolina and Luke's dollars in Texas, that are going to all of these other side projects. And it's not just Democrats. Republicans are just as guilty. They spend just as much on their own, pork and barrel spending and earmarks. What kills me is that the GOP used to be known as fiscal conservatives. And I think that I feel pretty safe in saying this, that with this $1.7 trillion omnibus bill, what you're saying is not even $1.7 trillion. It'll end up being 1.85, if not $2 trillion. Dude, fiscal conservatism is dead. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you've heard the term fiscal conservative? It's gone, man. It's gone, and it's heartbreaking, because you sit here as you talk about, inflation at another 7.1%, and it's like the White House is celebrating it. And what people don't realize is, okay, as we've mentioned many times, inflation is year over year, so it's 7.1% over last year, which was also 7% over the year before that.
Nope.
Dude, it blows my mind. It's just mind boggling. Kills me.
Yeah. Ben Franklin once said, "Rather go to bed without dinner than to rise in debt." Um, and you're right. There is the fiscal conservatism is gone. It is dead. I think when you talk about Congress, Rand Paul is probably is the only one left. Who even bothers to even call things out anymore. When it comes to this stuff, and he's one thing I like about Rand Paul is he's not afraid to call out the GOP. As well on their shenanigans. But the GOP knows, as do the Democrats. It's not. It's not that they don't know. They know. They don't care, like you said, because they're not being held accountable. Like, nobody holds them accountable. So what if they sign on to this omnibus bill? But it doesn't matter, because dude, they're not up for election for X number of years. This thing will be out of the news cycle next week.
It already is.
When
Already is,
everybody,
right?
yeah,
Christmas, New Year's.
yeah, Christmas, New Year's, Trump's taxes, Ukraine, um, you know, Andrew Tate, all that stuff, dude. That's all. This is going to be out of the news next week. When the federal government, when they show back up to work, it's going to be old news. In a couple of years, when somebody goes into the voting booth to pull that lever for Tom Tillis here in North Carolina, they're not going to remember this omnibus bill. It's going to be the last thing they think about. And so that is, we have we got the 24 hours news cycle. Everybody operates nowadays in 240 characters or less, kind of, thought process. Nobody really pays attention to the long-term, the downstream effects of things like this. And, they'll go in there and they'll say, well, who are we going to vote for? Well, I'm not voting for the Democrat. And so they'll pull that lever for the Tom Tillises and the Murkowskis and the Collins and, everybody. And, and then around and around we'll go. Um, and nobody will talk about, here's the other thing people won't talk about. People aren't going to talk about Liz Cheney, So this was pretty interesting, right? Because everybody's up in arms about Trump's taxes, which were an absolute nothing burger. If you talk about a nothing burger in the history of nothing burgers, his taxes are the nothing. It's truly one of the biggest nothing burgers because people are like, oh, we want to see his taxes. Scandalous. They're guarantee you he's cheating on his taxes. He's not paying taxes. Blah blah. They release his taxes, and they're like, this dude actually lost money in elected office. Like he came out of elected office poorer than when he went in, and you're like, yes, that is the way it's supposed to be because you're not supposed to go into public office and enrich yourself, right? That's not how that's supposed to work. But Liz Cheney in 2017, Liz Cheney had an estimated net worth of $7 million in 2017. In 2018, Liz Cheney's net worth was 14.7 million. Now that Liz Cheney is done with elected office because her state of Wyoming clearly voted her out. And it wasn't even close. Her estimated net worth is now $44 million. Now, somebody do the math for me on a $175,000 a year salary in 5 years. How did you go from being worth 7 million to being worth 44 million? It's and nobody will bat an eye. Nobody
It's
will bat
criminal.
an eye. And people make excuses for him. People are like, well, she invested really well. Well, I wonder what information she had to invest really well, right? It's the same excuse people make for, Pelosi. It was like, well, her husband he's a smart investor. Oh, okay. Yeah, he just happens to buy stock and sell stock at about the same time that legislation goes into effect that kind of impacts that stock value. And people are like, well, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's just they're really good investors. I'm like, no. I want to see I don't want to see Trump's tax returns because that dude left office poor than when he came in. I want to see the person who became a millionaire while they were in elected office. That's who I want to see. And then I want to overlay that onto a time events, okay, when was laws passed that affected these stock prices? Oh, okay. Who signed those laws? Oh, okay. That's what people need to be looking at, but nobody will. Again, man, people are going to go in that voting booth and they're going to be like, "Oh, I got to vote Republican because can't let that Democrat win." Heck no. So,
Oh, are y'all talking about Crenshaw?
oh no, but he's one of them. We're talking about how Liz Cheney went from a net worth of $7 million in 2017 to a net worth of $44 million this year.
Well, and going off, so here's some numbers. So you talk about former President Trump. So when Trump entered office, Forbes estimated that he was worth about $4 billion. When Trump left office, they factored his net worth at $2 billion. He lost half of his net worth while he was in office. Now, obvious reasons for that, right? Because he was the president and he's not working, as head of the Trump organization and running that business, bringing in revenue. So he's going to lose money. He's not lining his pocket. So these people get out there. It's like you said, dude, at 175K a year. One, I can't even fathom. It's like when we started Culper's Canteen Cup. My net worth was like $7. And now that we're year 2 into this thing, my net worth is probably like $5. I can't even imagine that these politicians come in here and make 30 or 40 million dollars off of their positions as an elected government official.
But
Dude, it's insane.
yeah, but and nobody and the biggest problem though, it's like you said with Zelensky. I don't fault Zelensky for going to showing up to the gold mine and be like, "Hey, give me some of that gold." Hey man, if somebody's stupid enough to give it to him, hey, by all means, you know. There is no ramifications, there's no consequence for their bad behavior. They're continuously rewarded for their bad behavior because people continue to vote these idiots into office.
dude, it's insane. And when you talk about the tax returns, so here's the one thing. And I think Luke has actually brought this up before. Believe me, if there was something in Trump's tax returns, they would have been leaked years ago. Okay,
100%.
that would have been out years ago. So here, and I went to some, I think it was like Salon or Atlantic or whatever left side website. Their big, the smoking gun in Trump's tax returns, and this isn't even his personal stuff. It's tied in with his business, the Trump organization. There's a Chinese bank account. Okay, so he has a bank account that's in China, and it's like, well, because his business does business with China and has to pay taxes in China. And not only China, there's like, I think, 17 or 18 other countries that his business, the Trump organization, does a business with. So guess what? He has accounts and all this. And then they're like, well, we need to know what those ties are. We need to know what that influence. Well, let me tell you what the ties and influence. The fact that he went from 4 billion net worth to 2 billion net worth, I don't really question that anymore. I really don't. It's the Bidens that go the other way, and the Republicans are just the same that go the other way. Those are the ones that I want to know. They're talking about the Chinese bank account, talking about loans to his children, right? Which, by the way, those parents, I mean, I wasn't smart enough to know this when I was a kid or younger as a young adult, but when I went through the transition from from the military to civilian life, and you go through the self tap or whatever the heck it is, you sit through one of these finance classes, and the guy was like, well, you need to start an LLC and you need to start paying your kids a wage. And he goes, you need to stop giving allowances. And, if you're going to give your kids money, make sure you do it as a gift, make sure you do it as a loan, because, you can write all this stuff off. Anyway, what you're finding is that, like me, the majority of Americans have no clue about how, his business taxes work. I mean, that's just the reality of it. He's not going in on a 1040 EZ and filling out his taxes. And they don't know the difference between, his business finances and his personal finances. The other thing is, they sit there and they beat him up over the amount of taxes that he pays. So does anybody go to H&R Block and say, hey, I actually want to pay more taxes this year? I mean, what do? We all have the same strategy, right? Like, I want to pay the least amount of money possible. And hey, man, if I can roll the dice and legally get a refund, I'll take that. And any of the listeners out there, you've got buddies and friends that complain and bitch about this. You know what? Any of them can send a check to the Treasury Department and they will gladly accept it and cash it.
100%. And that's the thing, it still boggles my mind. And this isn't just Trump, but people sit here and you'll hear Warren and Sanders and all these clowns come out and say, well, these people aren't paying their fair share. Bezos didn't pay anything in taxes this year, Well, and you're like, okay, one, it's because he's smart, right? Who wants to pay more taxes so they can fund the Michelle Obama trail in Georgia?
Exactly.
And number two, last time I checked, the legislative branch is the one who writes the law. So if you don't like the tax code and you don't like how, rich folks are leveraging the tax code to their benefit, then rewrite the damn tax code. But you won't do that because it's benefiting you as well, because you're making millions while in Congress, and you know damn well you don't want to pay any more in taxes than you absolutely have to. It's absolutely, it drives me nuts. And so many people eat that stuff up. So many low information voters and so many just ignorant people are like, yeah, that's crazy. I can't believe they don't pay taxes. It's like, I can't believe you don't understand why. Is
and he's using, hey man, if you want to close these loopholes or whatever, then do that. But don't blame me or blame him for using what's out there. And I tell you, here's the thing. I am fine, and I'll throw it over to Luke to get his thoughts on this. I'm absolutely fine with them pulling Trump's taxes and any other sitting president. I have no problems. I want them to be able to pull every elected politician's taxes. Let's not stop with Trump.
100%.
Let's go down the line. Real quick before I kick it over to Luke for his thoughts on it. So here's a list of the Republicans who voted in favor of the omnibus bill. And I think it was like 18 of them. So you had Roy Blunt, Missouri, John Boozman, Arkansas, Shelley Capito, West Virginia, Susan Collins, no surprise there, Maine, John Cornyn, Texas, Tom Cotton, Arkansas. Both those names kind of, again, Tom Cotton with the TikTok. I was kind of surprised with Cornyn. Lindsey Graham, South Dakota or South Carolina, no surprise. Jim Infohl or Inhom, Oklahoma. Mitch McConnell, Kentucky, no surprise. Jerry Moran, Kansas, no surprise. Murkowski, Alaska, no surprise. Portman, Ohio, no surprise. Romney, Utah, no surprise. Mike Rounds, South Dakota. Richard Shelby, Alabama. John Thune, South Dakota. Roger Wicker, Mississippi, and Todd Young in Indiana. So with that, Luke, we were talking a little bit about the omnibus bill, and the Trump tax returns. So any smoking guns in any one of those outside of the. And by the way, we are to the question I asked Josh earlier about the money we sent to Ukraine. It's over $48 billion now.
Oh, I thought it was more than that, but I guess not. I thought it was way more. I thought it was double that, but I guess that's good news. It's not double that. Yeah, start off with the omnibus. I mean, obviously, the reason the Republicans wanted to pass that, the ones who voted for it, there's probably a number of reasons. One were earmarks, also known as pork, within the bill. Each one of those people who voted for that, I'm sure, got something out of it. Number two, the Republicans are scared to death of a government shutdown. They're scared to death of it because it looks bad on them, which it kind of does. 48 billion from January to November. So last January to this November. Okay. It's a lot of money. So anyway, they're scared to death. They're scared to death of a government shutdown. It always reflects poorly on them because the Democrats are always like, well, we don't want to shut the government down. Just vote yes, and get to shut the government down. We don't have to shut the government down. But Republicans are always going to take the blame for that. So they didn't want that, I'm sure. But Shelby, good Lord. I mean, the guy is done in January. It's it. I mean, make a stand, dig your heels in. But I'm sure there's just so much going on behind the scenes with an omnibus like this. It's sickening. It really is. I mean, how much money we're spending. So with the tax thing, I really, obviously, I think the three of us would agree. We might not agree on the amount, that we should just do away with the current tax code completely and make it that one-page deal that somebody was touting. Was that Rand Paul was saying we could make the entire tax code fit on one piece of 8.5 by 11 paper.
Yep.
And basically it would be one of two things, actually. It'd be a flat tax, which still, if you believe taxation is theft, then you're against the flat tax, right? Income tax, that is. But we'll leave that alone for now, table that and say, we'll have a flat tax. Would it be 15%? Would it be 20? So on and so forth. I would say no higher than 20. But I would lean more toward the 15%. But then there's the other camp that's like, no, let's just make it all a fair sales tax. Let's just do that. National sales tax, almost like a value added tax that they have in Europe. Y'all remember that? That was fun. But but I think Rand and Ron Paul were for a combination of those two. But that will never happen. Why? Because of what you guys were saying. Because the super rich with their army of accountants and and internal auditors and all this stuff, they're allowed, or they're able to get around the tax code and pay actually less than like a 15 to 20% flat tax on personal income. And corporate taxes, stuff like that. I imagine the corporate tax rate would probably be maybe longer than one sheet of paper. I don't know, maybe not. But one thing I've always said, I think that for anyone employed by the federal government, immediately dock their pay by 30%, and that includes soldiers too. And then they don't have to pay any kind of federal income tax, zero, because it doesn't make any sense to me why soldiers and federal employees get their paycheck from the taxpayer, but yet they still pay taxes for their own paycheck. It doesn't make any sense. Dock the pay just automatically right off the top. Dock the pay, whatever you think, whatever it would be. What it would be, about 30%, Roger, 33, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, Roger's nodding yes. And then they don't pay federal tax anymore. Easy, right? I mean, but that would make too much sense. So we're not going to do that. Trump's tax returns, I'm off the Trump train. I don't care about any of that stuff anymore. There's stuff that's a lot more important to me than that. But I'll tell you who does care is all the super mega MAGA Trump haters. Man, they care about it a lot. I think Peter Struck and Alec or Vindman have well, they've blocked Culper's Canteen Cup, which we'll get into that in a second. Culper's. In
Awesome.
fact,
That's a
I
win.
might transition.
It's a
I
badge
might
of honor.
transition to that. I might transition to that if you guys don't mind. But boy, I'll tell you, Vindman and Struck are really all about that account in China. You know, if I ever run for president, which I won't, but I'll be in big trouble because I still have a bank account in Slovenia that has like 600 euro in it, and I'm not able to get it out unless I go back and physically close the account. And it's open for 25 years, and then they automatically close it. So maybe maybe if I go back, I'll finally close that account. But yeah, I have holdings overseas, if you will. I have to note that on my EPSQ next time. So, if it's okay with you guys, I want to go to the Twitter thing. And
Go for it.
okay. So, Josh, I think it was Josh, posted something the other day. I didn't see the original tweet, but I think Josh was replying. Josh, were you replying to a tweet? I've got it right here in front of me. Or did you just tweet this?
So I was quote tweeting
Okay.
someone.
So you were yeah. So it's like you were retweeting with a quote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it was about a drag show, right?
Yeah, drag show in
Okay.
Orlando.
Okay, so this was Josh's exact tweet from the Culper's Canteen Cup Twitter page. Quote: "Were the kids really present for this? CC at Jeremy Redfern, Florida, at Brian D. Griffin, hashtag Florida, hashtag DeSantis, hashtag trans, hashtag mental illness." And Twitter said, "We have determined that this account has violated Twitter rules, violating our rules against hateful conduct." That's it. Hateful conduct. And they basically blocked our account. We could still look at Twitter, but we can't like anything. We can't comment on anything for a whole week. So I'm like, wow, that's a lot of times Josh will go off half cocked like he did on Facebook a lot. And it's like, okay, now I can see why, it's free speech and everything, but I understand their rules, their terms of service. I get it. I get why they did it. But
Whatever.
this one, I had to look at it and be like, how on earth is this hateful conduct? And I'm guessing, and maybe you guys will agree or disagree, that it's because of the hashtag trans. That alone is fine, I guess. But the next hashtag, mental illness, I think whatever moderator looked at that said, well, that's hateful conduct. You're calling trans people have mental illnesses. So, in retrospect, I made a unilateral decision, which was wrong. And I just said, okay, fine, we'll deal with it. We're not going to appeal this, because I've heard appeals take up to 30 days on Twitter. And I was like, screw it. Let's just go ahead and take the 6-day block and that'll be that. That was a mistake. We should have disputed that, because look, in the DSM-5 Diagnostic Statistical Manual that is accepted by doctors throughout the U.S., throughout the world, actually, it basically classifies every possible disability, illness, so on and so forth, having to do with the brain. And they classified. I don't have it right here in front of me. I should have pulled it up before I got on here. I tweeted from the AJ Todd FMS account that the DSM-5 clearly spells out that transsexual, trans anything is a mental disability, which I guess that's not the same as illness. I don't know. But the fact is, I think we've said this before, the DSM, either it needs to change, or we can't speak truth. We saw a lot of this during COVID, but according to DSM, which is, again, American Medical Association, all agrees that it's the end all be all reference for mental illnesses or mental disabilities, and trans is in there. And I mean, I could post up exactly what paragraph it that covers that. But yeah, Josh, I mean, that was I guess that's strike one for the Culper's Canteen Cup. I guess we have 2 more strikes. However, Elon's going to do it, but I'm a little disappointed that Elon Musk took over and we're all excited about it. But this is the first time Culper's Canteen Cup Twitter profile has been blocked, has been shut down.
Is it?
whatever you want, whatever you want to call
I'm
it.
sure
I
Josh got us blocked like 2 or 3 times
I,
before,
I
right?
did he? I
I
don't remember
I
that.
don't know, man. I know my personal account's been blocked a few times, here and there.
But it's just, I mean, I want to go back and read. Basically, Josh just said, "Were kids really present for this?" And then he hashtag Florida, DeSantis, trans, and mental illness, and we got shut down for 7 days for that. It's like, Josh, is it a mental illness or not? Is there a difference between a disability and an illness, or what?
So I'm not remotely smart enough to answer that question off the top of my head. I'd have to do some digging, uh, you know, with the nuances between disability and illness, and is it or is it not? One, the DSM says it is, right? So there's a very large group of medical professionals who say it is. And me personally, again, like we've said it before, we're not doctors, but we can read. And anyone who thinks they are something that they're not is, yeah, man. Especially you're an adult, yeah. Hey, man. You know, it's the people who think that they're dogs and people who think that they're cats. It's like, dude. Like, we used to have these places for people like that. They were called insane asylums, right? They were generally called state hospitals, and that's people went there, they got their lithium, and and they got fed 3 times a day, and they were taken care of. But nobody entertained their thoughts and their disorder or illness, whatever you call it, whichever bin that it nests in. But that was cruel and unusual, so we shut those down, and then we released those people into the wild, and here we are. There was a there was a person. I don't want to guess our YouTube account banned here. There was a person who claimed they were biologically born a girl, a female, and went through gender reassignment surgery and said that they actually grew a penis because they were taking testosterone. And they're like, I have grown a. It was on Twitter. I retweeted it, and I tagged C3 in it. But it was like wait, what? And this person was adamant, right? This person was adamant. I can't. They're like, oh, I can't show it, but I have grown a penis because I was taking testosterone, and it was like, huh? But this person demands to be taken seriously. I'm sorry, I can't take that person seriously on anything, right? It's the same. There was a guy who was born a biological male the other day on Twitter who was rolling around on the bed holding their stomach, complaining about how their menstrual cramps were so bad that they couldn't work, that they had to call in sick to work because their menstrual cramps were so bad. And it's like, bro, you don't you don't have menstrual cramps. Why? Well, for starters, you don't have a uterus. You don't have, like, it's like, do you understand like what menstrual cramps are? Do you understand what they're coming from? I can't take that person seriously. And when that person demands to be taken seriously, it's either they are trying to play a game, right? They're just like, oh, eventually they're going to come out. It's like when we were kids, you're talking to, then you're like, psych, and like everybody laughs. They're like, oh, or you have a disorder. Regardless, I'm not taking you seriously. And at a certain point, I'm going to have to take you seriously, and I'm going to have to. You need to be medicated, and you need to be sent to one of the insane asylums that we just don't closed. Um, so I just, man, these people, the alphabet people, again, it all started back when we just want to get married. Like, we just want to be left alone and get married. That's it. And it's like, oh man, slippery slope. And then, you had those people who was like, oh, slippery slope fallacy, right? And you're like, no, man, like this leads to other things. Did you see what came out in Scotland today? Scotland will now legally will refer to pedophiles as minor attracted persons. So slippery slope fallacy, her. Yeah, we're here. We're here. We are now here to where we are going to be forced to accept pedophilia, all because we were told we had to, you know, entertain the mental disorder or illness or disability, whatever it is. I don't know what the correct term
Well,
is.
that's how they normalize it, right? I mean, that's how you normalize it. You take away any word or any meaning that makes it sound like it's not good. You try to desensitize the population from it. So the DSM-5 that Luke is talking about, it's actually pretty interesting, and maybe we'll post a link up so our folks can read it, because I'm not going to regurgitate all this stuff. So Luke was talking about the difference between a mental disorder and an illness, and one of the things they talk about, like the medical definition of an illness is poor health resulting from disease of the body or mind, versus mental disorder is a disturbance of the normal physical or mental health of the mind or body. What's funny, or not funny, I guess, what's interesting about DSM-5 when you get to chapter 4, and yeah, we'll publish the link up here. They start out, I mean, they call it gender identity disorder, and the second paragraph was, hey, we compared this to DSM, I think it was 3 or whatever the heck it was, or DSM-4, and we want to make sure that this is accurate. Do they need to remove it because homosexuality was like in DSM-2 back in the 70s or whatever? So they actually specifically mentioned this, that, hey, look, we looked at this and said, hey, do we need to weigh removing this, and yada, yada, yada. And at the end of the day, and it's a short paragraph on it, but at the end of the day, they said, no, it is a disorder. And they actually classify it. Let me skip down here, but they classify it into 3 specific diagnoses: gender identity disorder of childhood, transsexualism for adolescents and adults, and atypical gender identity disorder, a residual diagnosis. So, it's a pretty good read. I actually want to read the chapter myself, but I'll put it up there for folks to read. At the end of the day, and I don't know, Luke and Josh may have similar thoughts, or maybe totally opposite. I don't care. Like, whatever you want to do in your house, I could not care less. Couldn't care less. So, hey man, you want to do whatever you want to do in your house, or whatever your preference is, or whatever, that is on you. I could not care less until it impacts me or impacts my kids. And that's my problem when you start talking about the drag shows and this and that. Never been to one. Maybe they're fun. I don't know. I don't look down. I don't know if like, honestly, it's not even a conversation we've ever had. Hey, you going to a drag show? Whatever. I mean, people do whatever they want to do. Where I draw the line is when you start to bring 5 and 6-year-olds to them, right? And I remember a specific incident with my son when he was 5 years old. And I remember having a conversation like, hey, look, I am not ready to have this conversation with my son yet. And this wasn't a reference to a drag show, but it was another event that, was along the, very similar lines that we had to attend. And I'm like, well, I'm not bringing my kids because, my son was 5, my middle daughter was 8 years old. I think it was to take both of them. I'm like, look, I'm not ready to have this conversation on, why men are dressing up as women or women are dressing up as men or whatever. That, I think that's where I draw the line. Okay. When you start to impact other people's lives, you start to impact other people, like the conversations, especially around that nature that they're going to have with their kids. So then of course you see the obvious retort that, well, hey, you'll take your kid to Hooters. You doing this? Well, you know what? Here's the thing. And this goes back to DSM-5. There are normal things in life, right? And I don't mind exposing my kids to normal things. And by the way, at 4 years old, I'm not taking my kids to Hooters either. I mean, just, generally speaking. Hey, if he's 10 or 11, that's great, whatever. But again, that's on you. Whatever conversation you're ready to have with your children at that time, just don't make that determination for me. Right? So I'll throw it over to Luke. I think he's got a. I think he had a story to tell, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I can't remember if I told this story not long ago in this. I don't think it was on the podcast. Neither one of you guys remember, but I don't trust y'all's memories. So if I have told this on the podcast before, forgive me. But I do know that I've told this story recently in the context of discussing drag shows, and I'm with Roger. I don't really care until it starts impacting kids and children who haven't brains haven't quite fully developed yet. Which is interesting that the human brain doesn't fully develop until between 22 to 25 years of age. That's when the frontal cortex and all that stuff finally matures all the way. So, yeah, it's interesting. I actually have been to a drag show, believe it or not, way back in I think it was 2001. I think it was 2001. I was dating some girl, and I believe she was Muslim, but she was Jack Muslim. She's Albanian, and Kosovar Albanian. And she lived up in Louisville, Kentucky, and I would go see her occasionally. And one time I went to see her, and she lived with her two sisters, and they all three had jobs. They were on refugee visas and on their way to the pathway to citizenship, all that stuff. All three of them spoke English, very westernized, and like I said, Jack Muslim. They'll tell people they're Muslim, but they're not really. They don't even know what the five pillars are. They dang sure don't pray 5 times a day. I tell you that. They eat bacon at Denny's, all that. So they said, "Hey, we're going to go out to a show tonight." I was like, "Oh, okay, it's downtown. It's in the theater, you know." I was like, I didn't know anything about it. They just said it was a singing show. And we show up, and I noticed, wow, there seems to be a lot of homosexuals here, you know. But I don't care as long, it makes me uncomfortable when they hit on me. But all you have to say, in my experience, to a homosexual that hits on you is, "Look, I'm not gay, I'm straight," and they'll leave you alone. Uh, I didn't think anything about it. I was like, well, it's a show, like a Broadway show. Might appeal to a certain whatever. And the program had a listing of all these ladies that were going to sing. And the first one got up there, and I was like, oh, I've heard about stuff like this, but I've never really seen it. The thing is, and it was just a bunch of men dressed as women who were performing, and they were actually pretty good. They were singing Celine Dion songs, and really belting out those lyrics and those tunes, and it really wasn't bad. It wasn't for me. But everybody seemed to really be into it, and especially the girl I was dating at the time, and her two sisters. And I was like, you understand that those are men, right? And they're like, yeah, yeah, isn't it great? Isn't it funny? And I'm like, God, I guess I don't know. They were just really into it, and so was the whole crowd. But you know what? There were no children there. It was all adults. And I don't get the fascination with drag shows, but I don't have a problem if they have them. Whatever. Okay, you've got your own thing, man. Everybody's got their weird stuff that they enjoy. Uh, but when it starts being catered to children, drag queen story hour, I bring your kids to this drag show. It just creates too many questions in an unformed mind, I believe. But I also know that there are people out there that will go to their deathbed saying, no, children need to be exposed to this. And those are this, yeah, Josh is, yeah, I'll kick it to you, Josh. It's back to the pedophilia thing. I will say that these types of parents who will go to their graves saying that their kids need to be exposed are the same ones that, slippery slope, in a few years won't have a problem with their 12-year-old having a sexual relationship with someone over the age of 18 because it's just natural. And people say, no, it would never get to that point. Dude, it will. Watch it. It will get to that point. We're on the road. There's no turning back from this. People are too messed up. I believe our society is too far down the path to make a turnaround back to 1957. It's just not going to happen. And I think Josh has said it. Josh says it many times. I think my daughter was visiting, and she said, she's like, well, how do we get back from this? And I said it would take something that would radically alter every single person's life, probably globally. And what would that be? Nuclear war, massive conventional world war, asteroid impact, a major global financial meltdown. I don't know. Josh, do you agree or disagree that we're on the road to I think you already said it, so you can just maybe expand on it. We're down the road to pedophilia being normalized and actual pedophiles not getting prosecuted, saying that, oh well, the child has 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 the ability to make that sort of decision, because if they can make the decision to alter their sex at age 12 or 13 or whatever for the rest of their lives, well then they can also make the decision to have sex with whomever they please. I mean, I think we're on that road. I think that, they say that gender is fluid, right?
Yeah.
They say that gender is fluid.
Yeah.
So why are we letting 12-year-olds change their gender forever if gender is fluid? I don't know. So Josh, your thoughts? That's my drag show story.
Yeah. No, we're 100% too far down the road. And I, so those parents, those people, and I asked this question, I asked this question on social media from time to time when, these, folks are like, well, yeah, we should expose kids to this. And, it came up during, Florida's quote, don't say gay bill, which, had nothing to do with that. Basically it said you will not teach, no curriculum, to kindergartners through third graders about sex, period. Right. And it was like, why is that so controversial? Like, I don't understand why that's so controversial. Then people came out and they were like, well, what if I'm a teacher? And what if I get asked a question? It's like, you know what? That's a question you need to ask your parents, Johnny. That, like, see how easy that was? Now open your math book, and we're going to learn shapes and color. Like, see, that's super simple. That's how you handle that situation, Becky. And I didn't need to go to college for 4 years and get a teaching degree or a teaching certificate to learn that. So pay your student loans, deadbeat. So when you look at this and you're like, okay, well, so we should expose children to that. Fine. Can we teach the Bible in school? Oh, we can't teach that. Oh, you don't want them to teach that. Why not? Oh, because you don't believe in the Bible. Oh, okay. So now we're going to limit what we teach them because you don't believe in that. Okay, well, I don't believe that you should talk to third graders about sex or politics. Oh, but that's okay. We're going to make a concession for that. We're going to make an exception for that. I think we're too far down the road. I think I think we in the next 5 years you will see pedophilia normalized in the United States. And I'm talking about
5 years? You think that's soon?
In 5 years. I'm talking about it's going to be codified in state law. So effective tonight at midnight, SB 107 goes into effect in California. All right. And so what SB 107 says, and I quote, California law enforcement agencies shall not knowingly make or participate in the arrest or participate in any extradition of an individual pursuant to an out of state arrest warrant for violation of another state's law against providing, receiving, or allowing a child to receive gender affirming health care. All right, so that's California SB 107. Okay, now, basically, what does that mean? They're going to become a sanctuary state for child mutilation. So you can, as a child, you can go there, you can get it done. As a parent, you can take your child there and get it done. And no other state, even if you live in another state, can't come into California and prosecute you, or put the cuffs on you and take you back to a state. Again, people would be like, well, that's got nothing to do with pedophilia. Well, sure it does. Because you're already grooming those kids sexually to make them think that they need gender reassignment surgery. Right. So you're already, that conversation's already happened. That's already being done. You've already got that kid confused enough. And how many cases have come out in the last, let's say, 6 months? We'll just go 6 months. We won't even go back a year, 2 years. How many cases of a lot of these folks who have come out, these teachers, who are like, oh, gender is fluid, like Luke said, and, no, we're not grooming. And then they turn around and they come out and they've been arrested for sexually molesting a child. There's been a number of them. So don't tell me that these are just concerned parents, just trying to help their kid through this really troublesome time, this, that, and the other. And, they're just trying to help their child understand the world. No, these people are flat out groomers. And, there was Twitter before Elon Musk took over, they were banning people for even saying groomer, right? YouTube's probably going to ban us for me saying it. These kids are being sexually groomed, and we are going to normalize pedophilia in 5 years. In 5 years, and I guarantee you it will be a state like California or Massachusetts that will be one of the first states to say, okay, well, like you said, like Luke said, it's going to be like, well, I mean, when I'm maybe 15 and 18, that's really not that much of an age difference, right? It's only 3 years. I mean, look at Leonardo,
Yeah.
right? It's
Josh,
it's
I think
coming.
it's gonna. I think it's gonna start with a real close look at the Romeo and Juliet laws. If you're familiar with those, it's gonna start there,
Spot on.
where they're just yeah. It's going. Again. We talk about slippery slope, right? They're gonna play it to where it's like, well, let's talk about Romeo and Juliet laws, right? Because what's really wrong with like in the state of Texas, an 18-year-old, who was a senior last year, dated the same girl all through high school, whatever, and 18 and 17. I mean, we need to kind of do away with that. That's how it'll start. Not in Texas. I guarantee it won't start in Texas. So like Josh said, California, Massachusetts, somewhere like that. But I believe it'll be a gradual, incremental process where it starts with the Romeo and Juliet laws, and then next thing you know, it's okay for a 42-year-old man and a 12-year-old. So I don't. Roger, you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think what ends up, I think you're spot on. I don't know what happens in 5 years. I do think so. There's a couple things. One, you've got the gradual acceptance. It's not even the right term because I'll never accept it, but you'll have this gradual acceptance that happens over time. But then there's going to be something that's going to be more sudden. And what's going to happen is it's kind of like the law that Josh was just talking about. You're going to have that 42-year-old man who gets arrested for the relationship with a 12-year-old, goes to court, and then is able to use one of those laws to his defense and be found not guilty. And that's going to happen fast. And when that happens, the floodgates open. Because once you start to have that precedence, and again, with laws are very, it is a slippery slope with laws. Because once you find that loophole, once you find that way around, everybody does. And everybody uses it, and they start to use that same argument over and over. So I do think there's going to be this gradual decay where people more and more accept it. But I'm spot on with Josh. Like these people that push this and peddle this, they're sexual predators. They're groomers, period. There's nothing that you can say or do that will convince me that any teacher in America or in the world has to have a conversation about sex with my kindergarten age kid, period. Or first grade or second grade or third grade. And I don't even know I hate the term gender, affirming, because I don't even know what that means. Like God kind of already, well, whatever God you believe in or whatever, you either, XXXY for the most part. I get it. There's a 0.00004% that's out there that's XXY or whatever it is. But hey, your gender was already affirmed. You're changing now is what you're doing, which probably goes back to the whole transgender thing. But it just comes straight out to where they're grooming, and they want acceptance for what they're doing because they know that what they're doing is wrong. And it goes back to, again, the fundamental difference between the left and the right back in the day. And when we talked about fiscal conservatism and how that's dead, so that's no longer the difference. But, the main difference between the left and the right was the right doesn't care what you do as long as it doesn't impact me, where the left says, well, I want to be able to do what I want. And I want a law saying that you have to recognize it and accept it. And that's what you're starting to see with these laws out there. I mean, dude, it's crazy, and Luke, I think it was a good example, with the Romeo and Juliet laws, where I think most reasonable people can sit there and say, yeah, I get it. Hey, you dated the same girl through high school, you turned 18, she's 17, or even vice versa, right? The girl turns 18, you're still 17, you continue dating, and you turn 18 in 6-7 months or whatever. Does that guy or gal that's 18 need to go to jail for statutory rape? No, I think any reasonable person can do it. But going back to what I said, once you start that and that person is found not guilty because of that, well, hey, What happens if I'm a 19-year-old senior in high school? What happens if I'm a 20-year-old senior in high school? You can be a 20-year-old senior, okay, especially out here in Arizona, okay? And if it's 20, why not 22? Why not 25? Why do you even have to be in high school? Right? I mean, what if and that's where it goes. Hey, I was 10 years old and I've known her since she was a baby and there's a 6-year difference. So now you're talking, 12 to 18. Then you're talking, 15 to, 22, 23, 24. I mean, that's how it ends up. And there's just no way in my mind that you can sit there. And the majority, and this is what kills me, you can't tell me that the majority of the country accepts this either. One, a lot of it's just vote pandering. Okay. That's what they're doing. You're trying to pander to your base or their base to make sure that they, solidify those votes. But you can't tell me that the majority of the country agrees with this because they don't. There's no way. And that's not a scientific poll. I know nobody, very few people in my community condone any of that stuff. And when you look at just, transgenders as a whole, it's like 1.5% of American adults, are transgender. I mean, it's such a small percentage. So, what scares me, and I'll throw it over to Josh to get his final thoughts on it. But what scares me is what clearly in my mind started out as vote pandering and justifying what I'm doing that I know is wrong and evil and I want everybody to accept it is going to turn into laws and the codification of what you're saying where again, I don't know what happens in 5 years, but where it becomes legally accepted. And I do agree. Again, I could be wrong with the 5-year thing because I do think what happens is as you have that gradual decay, there is going to be some case precedent set out there on this thing, and probably in California or Massachusetts. And they're going to arrest that 42-year-old man. And he's going to say, hey, man, his defense attorney's going to get up there and they're going to cite some law that was just passed. And they're going to yeah, you're not guilty. So Josh, you might be spot on, man. I think something like that happens and it becomes a shock to the system. And next thing you know, it's legalized.
I hope I'm 100% wrong. Like I really, really hope that I'm flat out 100% wrong on this. But I think I think you're going to see it in 5 years. I really do, because like you said, people are demanding. Oh, well, we have to pass this law now, right? And it's like, well, we don't need it. Again, I go back to laws fall into one of two bins. They either do good or they feel good. And I would say the vast majority of the laws that's been passed in the United States, hell, I'd say the last 20 years, are feel good, right? They're feel good laws. The Patriot Act was feel good. That's all it was. It didn't do good.
Wait. You mean to tell me you think the Respect for Marriage Act that was just passed is just feel good?
It's just a feel good, man. It's just a feel good, It's, and I was gonna, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was gonna use that as an example. Like, we already had the Defense of Marriage Act. DOMA was a thing, and nobody, even I would even say your staunchest conservatives, even the people who probably live on that property that I sent you guys the picture of when I was driving back up through South Carolina, don't really care about interracial marriage or homosexual marriage. Like generally speaking, they probably really don't. Um, and I don't know any of my conservative friends who cared about it. They were just like, yeah, man, whatever, right? Because that was, dude. I mean, those two issues have been settled for a long time. But I mean, really, like nobody cared that all right, man, you think it's Adam and Steve, and not Adam and Eve. All right, cool, whatever, right? Because we went through that. I mean, we went through that, in the '90s, and dude, and interracial marriage, like, dude, nobody cares, like, truly. But they came out and they're like, well, we have to pass this law. And you're like, well, why? Like, nobody's challenged this. Like, nobody, there's not, and there hasn't been a case challenging this for a very, very long time. And they're like, no, we have to pass this to protect it. And you're like, it's already protected. It's already protected. The Constitution already kind of protects that, So, well, why are we passing this law? It was a feel good law. It didn't do any good, other than make people feel good. But it was like, okay, well, you're it was it didn't need to be done. And they all, it was only because Roe. It was like, okay, well, Roe wasn't settled case law to begin with, not even remotely. It's been challenged since the day it was passed. It just had a lot of really shitty challenges, which is why it was allowed to stand for so long. Um, you know, so eh, 5 years, man. I hope I'm wrong. 5 years. It's gonna happen, and people need to be prepared for it. It's gonna start, like you said. It's gonna be out in California. It's gonna be in one of these, far left states, and they're gonna turn around and they're gonna cite case law, and then it's gonna be all right. Well, we have to accept it now, right? We have to accept this, based on 0.3% of the population, 0.1% of the population. Now everybody has to accept it, and they will come to, dude, and it won't be something to where, oh, well, okay, it's going to be fine. Everybody, it's going to be fine. No, dude, they are going to use the law as a cudgel. And you speak out about it, you speak up against it, you're going to jail. You're going to get your bank account's going to be shut off. Like you are going to have the screws turned on you. When we go to, especially after we go to a digital currency, like we talked about a couple episodes ago. So,
Yeah, I hope you're wrong too, man.
me
I
too.
really do.
Me too.
So you guys, I think neither one of you guys believe in New Year's resolutions. I was thinking about New Year's resolutions a couple days ago. I was like, I don't like people who make their resolutions don't follow through on it, and I'll highlight the gym for one. Roger messaged the other day, and he's like, "Dude, the gym's already packed." And so it was like, I don't know, between Christmas and New Year's, I think, just a couple days ago. And I hate, I have to alter my gym times from January to about the middle of February, because by the middle of February, it's back to normal. But come January 3rd, man, oh, they're all in there. They're all in there with their New Year's resolutions. I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year. I'm going to get buff or whatever it is. That's just that kind of stuff bothers me. It's like, if you're going to make a resolution, follow through on it, or at least try, be consistent with it. But I thought more about the New Year's resolution. I'm like, well, it is a good time. It's a new year. It's a good time to take stock of things. I think the three of us kind of have the same mindset. It's like, I'm going to decide to do something. It doesn't matter if it's, August 10th, I'm going to do it. Josh did his, 75 hard thing. That had nothing to do with New Year's, as I recall. It was just, what, this is what I'm going to do. And so that was a big, that's a good one. I'll save that for you, Roger. That was a hard thing to do, and you did it. It didn't have anything to do with, taking stock at any particular time. But I think most people tend to take stock on January or December 31st. And it's like, okay, what can I do differently this year? And it's not that I have any resolutions, but it is a good time to take stock. And I realized last year I did not read near enough. I didn't read enough. I read a lot of news, but I didn't read enough books. So you know what? I'm going to try to read more books. I'm not going to keep track. It's not like I'm going to read 12. No, I'm just going to try to read more. It's a good time to take stock. But other than reading more and maybe getting a little bit back into the writing, because I took an entire year off, didn't do anything, maybe a couple of, articles for the C3 page or something, but, I'm just going to try to write more. I need to exercise my brain, because at this age, we all three of us need to start, exercising our brains, learning new things, whether it's a language or jujitsu like Josh is doing. And yeah, I mean, Roger, I'm going to kick it to you. It's like, first of all, I mean, did I describe accurately what you think about, New Year's resolutions in particular? And number two, do you have like anything that's not necessarily a New Year's resolution, but something you've decided, 2023, I'm going to do more of this or less of that?
Nothing.
Nothing. You just wrote something.
No. Well, one, like Josh, I'm not a big New Year's resolution guy. It's funny because my wife always asks, she's like, you don't have any New Year's resolutions? Like, well, no, because I do think, and I think all three of us do a pretty good job of it. I critique myself throughout the year. It's not like I have to wait till 1 January to, to start. I started my workout plan that I'm on now. I was talking to Josh before Luke hopped on, and I'm like, man, I was telling my wife the other day or today, it's like, I've been doing this for 5 weeks now. Like, I'm into it for 5 weeks, which is pretty consistent for me because it's hard traveling and and all that stuff. But I don't find that there's like a day that I need to start. However, this year I'm going to make an exception. So I'm going to have a New Year's resolution, and our New Year's resolution is going to be to put out more consistent episodes in media for Culper's Canteen Cup. I know we've got a lot of, and Josh hit it on the head. I didn't even think about it until he said it an episode or a couple episodes ago with well, hey, when we started this thing, COVID kicked off. I mean, I think our first episode, like COVID had just come out, right? Or was just announced. And the next thing you know, we're all locked down for 2 years. So we had plenty of time to sit here and record. And then, Luke comes back to the States. We all have our jobs, this and that. Holidays come around and it just becomes hard. But I do believe in what we're doing. And I know we have a lot of dedicated listeners out there. And I know all three of us get beat up on a pretty consistent basis. Like, hey, when you can put some stuff out. It's funny because when we first started talking about this and doing this podcast, I remember we were looking at, we were Googling some info, like how often should we put it out? And I think it was Luke. Maybe it was Luke or Josh that one of you said, well, hey, if we go, 15 minutes, then we should put it out 2 or 3 times a week. If we go an hour, it should be like once every other week. If we do 2 hours, it should be like once a month. And, the feedback that I get on my end from, folks I'm in touch with, like, hey dude, like we need something every week, like every 5 days, like, it's a Monday through Friday thing. And so anyway, I want to be a little bit more dedicated to that cause and at least getting some stuff out, because dude, I keep things on my notes, especially on my phone. And that's what I do. I keep it on my phone. I see stuff on the news. I read it. And I just talk about, like, oh, we got to talk about this. We got to talk about that. Because the other thing is, it's all about, and this is my lasting resolution, is to just learn, man. It's constant learning. And I think especially as you get older, one, you can never wait till New Year's Day to start your resolution, because you may not be around the next New Year's Day to start that resolution. So you better start it today, right? So, but it's continuing to learn. And I hope that our listeners learn a lot, because I know that myself, just having the conversations, I think we learn a lot from each other. And on top of that, you talk about reading. I love to read. I don't read as many books. I do more audiobooks, but I dive into a lot of this stuff on Google and a lot of these studies and this and that. I mean, dude, I love it. And so I want to continue doing that. And I know, I do a lot of that for this show. So, it's self-improvement. But that's my big New Year's resolution. So I guess I'll break tradition this year. I'll have a New Year's resolution, be a little bit more consistent, and we can get some more stuff out there. And I think, Luke, you talk about writing more. I mean, it's like, hey, let's put some C3 stuff out there. I mean, I know we send a lot of it's actually, I wish there was a better way to capture our texts, because we send some pretty entertaining things back and forth. Of course, we have to stop at about 4:00 p.m. because Josh is in bed. And then he wants to carry on the conversation at 3 a.m. the next day. But that's how I'm going to break tradition this year. How about yourself, Josh?
Hey man, I waited till 8:30 to go to bed last night. So no,
I'm literally like eating dinner, and I'll get a text from Josh with like he's in bed with the dogs. I'm like, are you serious?
I didn't realize when I sent you guys that last night, I was like, oh yeah, like it's not even 6:00 for Roger. It's just past 6:00 for Luke. I was like, it's kind of funny. They're probably like, what? This dude's already going to bed? Like I didn't eat dinner yet. Yeah, no, I mean, I generally don't do New Year's resolutions. Kind of like, as Luke brought up, when I did 75 hard, I mean, that was like in September. I decided, it was like, all right, that's when the wife was like, we're doing it. All right, let's do
And
it.
you said you're going to do it again, right?
Yeah.
You're going to start it up again?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it again. Cause it's just one of those things, like I haven't been consistent in working out. Kind of like you, it's like the traveling a little bit. I spent all last week, in Atlanta, going to some medical appointments and hanging out with my dad and my sister, my older sister. And so it didn't get a whole lot of chance to do a whole lot there. And it's like, you know what, to get back in the right headspace and and everything, and just force myself to be consistent. I'm going to go ahead and jump on the 75 hard again, and I'll probably just go ahead and start it tomorrow. It's not a New Year's resolution.
Sure, why not?
But well, it's one of those things. Is it's like, well, you could always wait till Monday, but I mean, it's like you said. I think you said it before. What's the best day to start a diet or a workout? Well, it's always the next day. It's like, so why wait? Why wait any longer? But as far as New Year's resolutions, man, I'm gonna be the same asshole on January 2nd than I was, 5 days ago. Like I'm not. I don't. I generally don't do New Year's resolutions. Um, by and large, because like you say, if there's, I take stock throughout the year, and I'm constantly every day, every couple of days, it's like, hey, what am I doing? What's going on right now? Like, I don't need to be doing this. I need to be doing this over here. I need to do less of this, more of that. So yeah, I don't. Oh, well, I'll just kick it off on the new year. No, I've never really been like that. And I'm not gonna start now, man. I'm too old.
I got
Start
an
that
idea.
nonsense.
So we don't have to start it this year. We'll do it next year. Next year, we come up with New Year's resolutions for each other.
Yeah, but they got to be
snap.
realistic. They got to be realistic, though.
Yeah.
Something that can actually be accomplished.
Matter of fact, I'm going to start that with my wife today.
Like, I can't. My resolution for Roger can't be, hey, or for Josh, hey, no more buying no more buying bourbon. It can't be something stupid like this. But it could be you have to limit yourself to one a week, like buying one, not drinking one.
Oh,
That's not a good one
dude,
either.
I don't even buy one a week. I don't even buy one a week. I might buy like one a month.
Okay.
I mean, there might be a month.
I've got the game tape on my phone right here.
Yeah, now they're going to take. Now they're going to take our episode down for lying. Misleading information.
Yeah, misinformation here.
So what? Like, give me an example, Roger. What would be one for me or Josh that you would come up with?
Put me on the spot. You know what? I'd say, like, okay, well, Luke, you need to put out your little short takes once a week on the website.
I mean, that would be realistic and doable.
Realistic, doable, but I think it's also, we talk about self-improvement. It's when it was like, hey, man, it gets you back into writing, write about whatever, and, hey, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what you start doing tomorrow.
Well, here's one for all of us. How about this? By June, we need to have published Harder to Kill.
That's a good one.
Oof.
It's a good one.
Right. Like,
June. Oh. I don't know. Let's see. How many months is that? That's 6 months?
That's 6.
I don't know. That would be tough. That would be really tough.
What about by September?
September would be absolutely doable.
Okay. So how about
so would June, but I mean,
well,
June,
I think I would be more like, hey, we need to have the draft written, right, or typed out or whatever.
Draft by June.
By June.
Okay.
That's and then tighten it up because it's going to take. Yeah, for those of you who don't understand, we've kicked around the idea of writing a book called Harder to Kill, and it would just be. It's not really self-help. It's just our strategies for dealing with things, and sometimes we don't even follow through on our own, but. It would kind of hold us.
This is what you should do.
Yeah, it's different strategies, and it would hold us accountable, and we'd be doing it for the three of us, but also for anyone who'd want to read it. And obviously, with any self-help book, I don't know if I've ever really read a self-help book, honestly. Maybe 7 Habits of Successful People. I think I read that like in college or something. But you'll take something out of it that you may be able to use. And that's what we're talking about, is the three of us just coming up with, enough to fill, a decent sized book with different strategies for, making yourself harder to kill. Every day of your life, making yourself harder to kill. And you can imagine that can take many different forms. It's not just working out. It's like Roger said, learning. It's about becoming more familiar with your surroundings, getting more involved with the community, so on and so forth. So that's kind of what we're talking about. And I do think that we'd all have to put our nose to the grindstone, because it's the easiest thing in the world is to come up with an idea to write a book. The harder thing is actually sitting down and doing it. Obviously, it's tough to do. And I think that, again, we could put together a draft, but it's going to take a long time to put everything together in a coherent way, because there's 3 different people writing it. That's a hard thing to do. But yeah, that's a good idea. So I guess you want to make that official right now.
Let's slap the table. Let's make it official. And hey,
okay.
listeners, hold us accountable.
That's right. Hold us accountable. And I guarantee there are a few that will, at least on my end, the people that communicate with me on text and not on the Facebook page or the website. We can stamp in my foot. Hey, man.
Or Instagram.
Put this
or Twitter.
Or Instagram.
Like something.
Or Twitter. But wait 6 more days on Twitter. That's when we'll be able to.
Yeah.
Because because I know Damon's really good at holding us accountable. It's like, I'm sitting here, he posts the memes of the skeleton, laying
Yeah.
back on the park bench waiting for C3 to come out with a new podcast, the one of Pablo Escobar or
Yeah.
whoever it is,
Yeah.
sitting
Standing
there
in the
waiting for
pool and sitting on the
C3.
swing. Yeah.
So real quick, I want to ask y'all, what do you think about the Biden stance on COVID tests for all people entering from China?
Well, I was told in
Jesus.
2020 that was racist and xenophobic. I don't know if that's changed, but that's what I was told
Come
when
on, man.
the last president did this. I was told it was racist.
Come on, man. Hey, dude, it's just all spinning back up again. It's, I pulled up news this morning and there's the new variant for COVID and you're starting to hear, I think LA County is getting ready to go back to mask mandates again. Dude, it is insane. I'm glad I live in the state of Arizona. Well, I say that now, what's her face? Katie Hobbs is going to be our new governor come January. So I don't know. I might have to move out to Texas and be with Luke or something like that. At least you'll have one more vote against Beta when he runs again for governor.
Do it. Let's consolidate. Of course, Josh's Goldilocks. It's like, it can't be too hot. It can't be too cold. I mean, we were giving him crap the other day. It's like, it's too hot in North Carolina. It's too cold in North Carolina. It's like, well, where are you going to live, man?
He's soft. The book is going to be for Josh to be harder to kill. And I do want to clarify. I do want to clarify something with the gym. Like, I am not opposed to people going to the gym. Obviously, right? Hey, man, pack it, whatever, and good on you. I think we all need to do it. We're whether it's the gym or go walking or whatever. My issue is like nowadays, dude, there is so much stuff on YouTube. Like, at least do a little bit of reading before you get in there. Because the problem is like I watch folks and it's like, hey man, you're gonna hurt yourself. Like seriously, you're physically gonna hurt yourself. And I think that's a lot of what happens. People quit because they get sore, then beyond sore, they keep doing it incorrectly, whatever it is, they end up getting hurt, they injure themselves, and then they're out of the game. And I just kind of look around and it's like you got people that are on the machines that are meant for one thing, but they're doing, it's doing what is it, curls on the squat rack. It's like, come on, man. Like
Yeah.
literally.
That's always been my issue. Like I'm always glad to see people get in the gym and and move their body around. Like that is always a good thing, right? And this shocking revelation, it was just a scientific breakthrough. The Washington Post came out with an article that said people who are physically active and more physically fit didn't die as much from COVID as people who were out of shape. I mean, just a scientific breakthrough. It's basically like when when Newton invented found gravity. I mean, it was on that same level. And so, get in there, move your body, work out, but like Roger said, like understand, at least try and get an idea of what you're doing before you go in there. And my pet peeve has always been people doing curls in the squat rack. Like there's generally not a lot of squat racks in gyms. Like get out of the squat rack unless you're doing squats and re-rack your shit. Like those two things, man, and wipe down your equipment when you're done with it. No, that's my big three things, and just be consistent. Like just be consistent. If you know you're going to be out, I'm gonna go for a couple days and I'm done. Well, just don't go. Like either be consistent or don't go at all. Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah, start slow, man.
Yeah,
like Roger was saying, start slow. That's one thing that I've got to continue to realize. Not just starting slow, because this current workout regimen or whatever I'm doing is I started slow, which was a good thing, and I was seeing some good progress. And but what I have to remember is, dude, I'm damn near 50 years old, and the brain is willing, but the body is just like, hey, bro, you're never going to be 33 again. It's just not going to happen. So I have to keep myself in that mindset. It's like, it's the harder to kill thing. It's like I'm working out now, so I'll have more flexibility and more mobility when I'm 70. I'm not working out, so I have to remember this. I'm not working out so I'll look good by the pool this summer. That's not
That
the
helps
point.
though.
It helps.
This is what the wife says, right?
I recently got something to my back, man. I don't know what it is. And if you look on YouTube, I've been moving like back and forth, and it's getting old, man.
Yoga, dude.
That's all it is.
Yoga.
I know.
Whatever.
That's right.
I'm telling you.
Stretching, anything. Yeah.
Dude, I'm
It'll
telling
help.
you,
Don't
go
try to groom
find
me. Don't try to
go
groom me.
you would be so good at yoga because most Asians are flexible.
Such a racist.
It's not, no, man, it's not racist. It's
It's
true.
fact. If it's true, it's not racist.
Exactly. I mean, white people who live in trailer parks like red Kool-Aid and mac and cheese. Like it's not racist. It's true. The yeah, Luke, I'm telling you, man, yoga. Go find you a yoga place.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a yoga instructor here in the house with me, but I've always been too hard headed and like, oh, that's not a real workout. So yeah, maybe that's something I need to do is get her to train me a little bit in that because I have done like stretching programs, which is similar to yoga,
Sure.
and yeah, I always feel better, man. Always feel better.
Yeah.
But that's not a manly man workout.
Yeah, I mean, I was a dude. I was the same way. I was the exact same way. And the wife finally, it's probably been 2 years ago now. Maybe before then, not before. It was before that, probably like 3 years ago now. The wife finally talked me into it. She was like, "You're coming with me. Take it was like a 4 series, class yoga for dummies, basically." And this place here where I live, they do hot yoga. And so they crank, you get two choices. You get a warm room, which is body, the room is body temperature, or you get a hot room, which the room's above body temperature, right? You can pick which one you want. And then there's of course, and then there's also different kinds, right? You got like you can do yoga with props and this, that, and the other stuff, or you can do, it's a flow or vinyasa, whatever. Yeah, I can't remember, all the stuff goes to it. And so at first I was like, all right, whatever. I really don't want to go. But after going, for a couple months, man, like there was a noted difference. Some of my joints that hurt didn't hurt as much. They still hurt, but they didn't hurt as much. And I was notably stronger, um, just from going, for months and months and months of doing yoga. Cause yeah, it's all body weight, but man, dude, when you're using your body weight for an hour straight in a 90-95 degree room, bro, it's a you worked out when you're done with it. And the other part of it too, and is, man, that was an hour of damn near silence, um, where that was just kind of for me. I got to just kind of turn off my brain for an hour, which I think is beneficial for everyone. Um, Especially you do it over a couple of days. They raised the price where we used to go now. Used to be like $12 a class. Now it's $20 a class. And granted, inflation is still a great place, but obviously I don't go as much now as I did before, simply because of the price. What up?
Either you guys ever go to a chiropractor? And if so, do you like it? If not, why not? I mean, if you have gone and you didn't like it, tell me why.
I've never
And if
gone.
you have gone and do like it, Roger, you nodded your head.
Yeah, I went. Remember, I shot you the stretching thing. He didn't do any adjustments or anything like that. What he
Yeah.
what he did was he broke out a couple of studies for me because I had some preconceived, thoughts about what was going on, and a lot of it is psychosomatic. I was told X-rays, I had a little bit of arthritis in my back, and this. Anyway, he brought some studies out with me. He's like, you need to clear your mind of all this junk that you've heard before. These are the facts. And then he showed me my X-ray, and then I think I sent it to you. He gave me the stretching things, man. He's like, hey, if you do this, he goes, this will be 66% of the solution. He goes, there's some other things that you may have to look at, medically, medical wise, if you want to have surgeries, if you want to go that route. But he's like, this is the 66% solution. And the stretches he had me do for my lower back, dude, I wish I'd had these things like 20 years ago. I actually thought about doing yoga before until I went to go see this chiropractor. It's funny because we have hot yoga out here down the street, and it's literally cooler in the hot yoga room than what it is outside.
And then you're making fun of me because I don't want to live there.
I think our hot yoga room, it's like 105 or something like that. So you're going to walk out of 115-degree heat to walk into a room that's 105 for hot yoga.
Yeah,
Unreal.
see, this is why, dude. This is why I won't live there.
It's dry heat though, man. It's good for your skin. It's good for your
Dude,
skin.
when plain tires stick to the tarmac, it doesn't matter if it's dry. It doesn't matter if it's dry heat, bro.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. So I have one last thing before I'm done. and it's not a resolution, but I know a lot of folks, they look at us and we've had comments back and forth, and especially on some of the woke posts where they think that we lean right, we're conservative podcasts, this and that. Dude, I am telling you what, the GOP better bring it. When they take office, right, and they take control of the House, they better bring it, because I know this. Not that we have I get it. We don't have the 10 million listeners and the followers and this and that, but there are 3 people here that are going to hold the GOP accountable, at least the best that we can, because I don't care. I've never cared who was in power. Obviously, the Republicans are more in line with what my beliefs are, so that's why I tend to vote that way. But at the end of the day, man, I'm voting for the best candidate, and I don't care who's in power. You have to hold them accountable, whether they're Democrat, Republican, Independent. And it's kind of crazy, because when Sinema went to become an independent, dude, it was insane out here. Like, people were losing their minds, and it's like, oh, so you didn't vote for the best candidate? You voted just purely based on political party. And I know a lot of us do that, especially with folks that we may not know as well, or officers we may not know. But I know for the 3 of us, we will definitely do our best to hold them accountable as well. Real quick shout out, and I'll kick it over to Josh. Hey, you know what? We get our listeners out there. We don't do it enough, but we were going through some of the numbers, and it's like, man, we have a pretty solid core of folks who continue to listen. So, for the Spencers out there, and the Randys, and Joe, and Brian, and everybody else, definitely appreciate you continuing to listen, and definitely appreciate the interaction. And with that, from my end, I hope everybody has a fantastic and happy New Year.
Yeah. So I'm on Tuesday. I'm registering as an independent here in North Carolina. I'm done with the Republican Party. So yeah. So you guys can hold the GOP accountable. I'm done with the GOP. So yeah. Hey, no, for the folks that that continuously listen to us, we really appreciate it. Joe down in Florida, man. I hope you're feeling better. Saw you were sick, and happy belated birthday to you as
That dude had a
well.
cooler full of shrimp. He's fine.
What?
He's
I
fine.
didn't see that one. I know.
Yeah,
I remember it
he's
posted he
like,
was
I'm
sick.
sick, and then it was like 10 pounds of shrimp he's getting ready to cook. He's fine.
I
He's
love it.
such a drama queen,
I love it.
or king, or drama person,
Drama person, individual.
drama individual.
That's right. He might not identify as a person. I don't know. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he is a man. So no, I really appreciate you listening. Like you said, Don and Linda, and Jason and Big Game, and everybody out there who listens to us and supports us on a consistent basis. We do appreciate it, and we will, by hook or by crook, put out more content. It may be times where there's only 2 of us, and there may be some times when it's only one of us just hops on here and rants for 30 minutes, and then as soon as Roger edits it and makes it all pretty, drop it. But we will get you more content, this coming year. And if we don't, absolutely feel free to reach out to us and berate us for for not doing it. We need you guys' help to keep us honest. So with that, I hope everybody has a very good New Year. And I'll throw it over to Luke.
Yeah, I was a little late joining y'all. I'm sure you knocked it out of the park till I was able to jump on. Old Specialist Jones forgot to update his computer before jumping on the podcast. So apologize for that, guys. Yeah, everybody be careful out there tonight. It's probably one of the most dangerous nights to go out. Don't drive drunk. Y'all know that. Here's your safety brief. Don't drive drunk. And if y'all are having any trouble during the new year, man, always give us a call, man. Give us a call, reach out to us, and let us know, because it's still at 22 a day, and we hope 2023 treats you well. Reach out to your buddies. It's something 3 of us should probably be better at doing. So help each other out, man. Thanks everybody for listening. I always leave somebody out. Eric there in Amarillo, he's always asking my old man, when are they putting out another show? When are they putting out another show? So Eric, I appreciate you listening. Damon, Dylan, Jesse, Jed, family, the members of my family and extended family who listen. Really appreciate that. Scott, as usual, the Cajun conservative, wishing all y'all a good 2023, and everybody else didn't mention. I know Ryan is always wanting to mention. So I don't know if you guys mentioned it, but thanks for listening, Ryan. He holds us accountable. You guys don't be afraid to do that in public, on the Facebook page, Twitter, whatever, man. And really appreciate y'all listening. And looking forward to 2023. This is episode 105. And till next time, till next year, keep your canteen cups full and tightly secured.